Most shooters are very familiar with the 223 Remington. It's the most popular centerfire rifle cartridge in the U.S. and chambered in the very popular AR-15s and Ruger Mini 14. But a lot of people may be less familiar with its big brother, the 22-250 Remington. So if we put them together, you can see that actually they have the same exact bullet. These are both 22 caliber, 55 grain Hornady VMAXs. Now don't take that as an endorsement of mine for Hornady, because they had forced all of their employees to get the shot in the arm over the cough in order to keep their jobs. So I'll likely never buy another Hornady product ever again, but I just happen to have bought these back before all that went down. But anyways, they have the same exact bullet, but you can see the 22-250 has much more case capacity for more of a powder charge in there. So what that's going to do, moving the same bullet with more powder behind it, is going to make the 22-250 move at a much higher velocity. But because you're putting more pressure during ignition down to that same small neck, you're getting higher pressures than you do with the 223. So the more that a cartridge is bottlenecked down, the more higher pressure it's going to create. That little extra velocity that you can squeeze out of the 22-250 really makes it nice and flat shooting, and I think makes it a good varmint cartridge out to around 300 yards. Once you get out past that distance, it's not so much the trajectory of the cartridge that's falling off, it's more environmental conditions, because that little 22 caliber bullet starts getting thrown around with wind in the environment. But you compare that to the 223 Remington, I would say as a varmint cartridge, that's good to around 200 or so. Now, a lot of people are going to argue you can take the 223 much further because, you know, the Marines use that cartridge out at 600 yards. But that's also on a human-sized target, right? We're talking about a little prairie dog. So when you're talking about that kind of accuracy, it's a little bit different. Because I know back at my old job, we qualified with the 223 out at 300 yards. But again, that was on a human-sized silhouette. And even at that distance, at the 300 there, you had to be careful because if there was a strong crosswind coming 10, 15 mile an hour gusts somewhere down the range, it would blow you 15, 18 inches off the target. So at the 300 yards, it was capable of hitting human-sized targets, but you do have to be mindful of the wind and the conditions you're shooting in with it. A more bottlenecked cartridge like the 22-250 creates higher pressures, like I said. So what that means is say on your 223, because it's relatively lower pressure, you can actually shoot it a little more rapidly without it overheating your barrel quite as quickly. So that is definitely more suitable for, you know, like an AR-15 type of thing where you may be shooting a little bit faster in those purposes. Whereas with your 22-250, you want to be a little bit slower with your shots, okay? Take a little bit of time in between each shot. And for me personally on this rifle, I never shot more than 3 or 5 rounds at a time, with each round having a little time in between it. And then after those 3 to 5 rounds, set it down and let it cool off before I keep going. Because rapid fire of a higher pressure cartridge is going to erode your barrel and reduce the barrel life on it. But if you're careful with it, you can make your barrel last a very long time, even with the higher pressure cartridges. So usually rifles chambered for 22-250 will have a thicker what's called a varmint barrel. And I'm going to try to get this. You can see that's a very small 22 caliber hole with a lot of steel around it. So this is a very heavy barrel. And in addition, they put these flutes in there. What that does is creates more surface area to help with the barrel cooling. And just the overall large amount of steel on that thick barrel is meant to act as a heat sink. So they intentionally put a heavy varmint barrel like this on there to help with helping it cool off a little. Now that does create a situation where it's rather front heavy, right? Because you just got a lightweight wood stock and then that very heavy barrel. It's not hard to get used to. Usually people that are shooting with varmints will set this out on a rest. So it's not a big deal. But even shooting offhand, I find it rather, it's not a big deal. It's a little bit of an adjustment, but you get used to it. And actually that heavier weight combined with the nice recoil pad here makes this very comfortable to shoot. So if you're just a trigger puller that likes doing magazine dumps at the range, you absolutely should just stick with a 223. That is a better cartridge for that and cheaper. Whereas the 22-250 is meant as more of a precision instrument. It's a tool specifically for a very specific purpose of long-range varmint shooting. Now, the reason I'm talking about all this today is because I'm actually considering selling this rifle. When I had bought it and invested in this cartridge, I lived in northern Illinois where it's completely flat up there and all the land's cleared for corn and soybean planting. So when you have very flat land like that and you need to take out varmints or predators, they're not going to let you get close. So up there, this was a fairly common cartridge for like farmers and that had to worry about coyotes attacking their chickens or even attacking their personal pets. Or out west, a lot of places you got varmints like prairie dogs and woodchucks, things like that, which are not going to let you get close before going to ground. Now, I'm personally also not somebody who goes out of my way to go varmint hunting. It's not my thing. A lot of people would question why would you need to shoot a cute little critter like that prairie dog? But you know, if your prized horse were to step in a prairie dog burrow and break its leg, you would understand why a lot of ranchers in that like to get rid of them and see them as a pest. So because I moved down here to the woods in Arkansas, you can see the area behind me. This is the kind of terrain I've got all over my land and the surrounding area. There's not really anywhere where I have need for the extended range of this, at least not for varmints and predators. I do have larger caliber for deer hunting and things like that over longer distances. But I do have like a few rifles chambered for 223, which, like I said, will handle those duties out to 200 yards comfortably, and for personal defense, even a little bit further than that. So I think those will handle my personal needs. So yeah, I would hate to get rid of this thing. I mean, I love this rifle. This is a Kimber, by the way, Kimber Varmint. It's set on their Model 84 action, which I believe is the same size as their short action cartridges like 308s and cartridges based off of the 308. But it's a very beautiful one. Kimber says that this is a walnut stock, but that's actually the most patterned walnut I've ever seen on a rifle stock. So it's a very nice find. But the way I look at it is if I have multiple other tools that will get the job done for me now and where I currently live, and I can sell this and put that money towards some other infrastructure I need, like a storage shed or something, I have to heavily consider it. I mean, yes, would I miss selling off a nice rifle, especially one that shoots such nice tight groups? Absolutely. But I've gotten over losing indoor plumbing, so I'm sure I'd get over losing this as well. But the 22-250 is an inherently accurate cartridge. Some people say there's no such thing as an inherently accurate cartridge, but there absolutely is. I mean, they obviously have not shot a 22-250 or a 300 Savage or a 222. They're cartridges that just their design will shoot tight groups with a wide variety of powders and bullet choices. But like I said, I can do without this. As far as this rifle, man, Kimber knocked it out of the park here. Usually I don't like Kimber's rifles because they've gone to the very ultra lightweight sort of thing, and maybe there's some people that like that. I find the super lightweight rifles to be difficult to shoot, man. They're just hard to get accurate because they're just so lightweight. They're real jumpy. But with this heavy barrel on it, the extra heft to this made this nice to shoot. So it is one of the few Kimbers that I really enjoy. If there is one complaint I have about this, and it's kind of a small one, is that this has a 3-position safety. So when it's all the way to the rear, it locks your bolt in place, which is nice for when you're walking around. It's not going to end up coming loose on you. And then the center position, see, that's my problem right there. The center position, which allows you to cycle the bolt, but still locks the trigger, is in the middle. And then all the way forward is to fire. But you see, when I was moving from the rear to the middle, it's a very light feeling. Like you can barely tell when you hit that center position. I love 3-position safeties. I have them on my Winchester Model 70s. I absolutely want all my bolt actions to have a 3-position safety. But this one, it's just, you got to be very careful to feel that because you can easily just go straight forward with it. So I had actually contacted Kimber customer service to see if that's a problem or if that's just naturally how they work. And they never even replied to me. So take that for what it is. But it is a nice rifle. And if I decide to sell it, somebody's going to get their hands on it and they absolutely love this thing. If I did ever need to do the long distance varmint thing in the future, I do also have a couple of rifles chambered for the 243 Winchester. Now, for those who are aware, that has a pretty wide bullet range. It'll accept from small, like 58 grain bullets meant for varminting up to like 100, 105 grain deer hunting bullets. Now, of the two rifles, both of them like the 100 grain deer bullets. They both shoot those well. But only one of them likes the smaller varmint bullets, specifically the 75 grain range. It really, really likes those. But the other one just doesn't shoot very tight with the smaller varmint bullets. It's not bad like beach ball size groups or anything, but not tight enough that I would like for varminting purposes on a small long distance target like that. So I could set up that one rifle with 75 grain varmint bullets specifically for longer range if for whatever reason I needed to. But another thing to keep in mind is you have a lot of people that will praise the versatility of a rifle like that. The 243 can be both a varmint and a deer rifle. And you also hear it a lot with the 30-06 because that will take anywhere from 110 to 220 grain bullets. But the problem is that your specific rifle is not going to like all of those ranges. So just because it can accept everything in that range does not mean that your specific rifle is going to like it. And even if you do want to switch between the different bullet sizes, you're going to get different points of impact. So if you're switching from a smaller varmint bullet to a larger deer bullet, you are going to have to go and readjust your optics and re-sight everything in because it's going to be different. So you can't just sight it in, pop in a varmint bullet, be accurate, and then pop in a deer bullet and be accurate as well. They're going to give you different points of impact. So for me, versatile cartridges like that aren't, it's not a plus to me. It's not a negative either, but it's not a selling point for me because I know that each individual rifle is going to have its preferences for what it's like, what it likes. So it's up to you to know your rifle and test it and find out what your rifle likes and then stick with that. But I guess the whole point I'm trying to get across is that, you know, don't let people online talk you into buying a cartridge because it's the greatest thing ever. Yes, the 22-250 is a fantastic cartridge for that very specific long range varminting that it's meant for. It is a specialized tool specifically for that. So if you do need a tool in your arsenal for that kind of thing, then absolutely go with that direction. But I think most people watching my channel are interested in homesteading, off-gridding. And I think that just for general preparedness options, you can give the 22-250 a miss. I would say the 223 Remington, or you know, it's also known as the 5.56 for the military designation. That's just much easier cartridge to come by and much cheaper. And it's going to do a lot of the same coverage. And some people argue the 22-250 can be useful for deer as well. I'm going to disagree on that as well. I think not only do a lot of states require a minimum 24 caliber 6mm like the 243 Winchester, so you do have to follow your state laws when hunting. But I think the 243 really should be your minimum for hunting deer. The 22-250, it's just that 22 caliber bullet. I like something just a little bit more frontal area and a little more bullet weight to it for the larger critters. So if I believe that you should have a 243 minimum for deer, why would I say that the 223 is good enough for, say, personal defense against humans, since humans and deer are constructed relatively similarly? Well, that's because there is a difference between hunting and personal defense. Okay, when we go hunting, we have a moral obligation to take the animal as humanely as possible. So that's why I disagree when people try to take something like a 22-250, and I've seen videos online where they're shooting at coyotes at 800 yards with it, some ridiculously long distance. And of course, they're not getting a good clean hit on it. They're shooting the coyote. When they do finally hit it after a number of shots, they'll hit it in its back end, and then you see the dog spinning around and yipping. And to me, that is not good hunting. That's animal cruelty as far as I'm concerned. So when you are hunting, it is up to you to pick the right cartridge, to pick the right bullet for that cartridge, to know your distances and know your own personal shooting limitations and your rifle's own limitations. But when you're talking about personal defense, that's different than hunting, because when a criminal is violently attacking you or somebody you care about, they forfeited their right to being treated humanely, right? At that point, it's not about being humane towards them. It's about stopping their actions. So whatever it is you have, if you can shoot a 223 the best and put the most number of rounds on target as quickly as possible with this over a higher caliber, then yeah, absolutely use that for personal defense. So if you're looking for a general purpose self-defense cartridge that could also be used for out to 200-yard varminting if needed, then the 223 Remington will work just fine for you. It's kind of one of those cartridges that really every shooter should be familiar with and have something laying around in, just because it's sheer availability. It's not my personal favorite self-defense round, um, but that doesn't take away from it. For me, if during the apocalypse, a gang of zombie bikers were to come pulling up my driveway, I'd be pulling out my semi-auto 308. But that's because that's my training level. I'm comfortable and I can shoot that just as well as I can shoot that. So that's for me. But for most people, I would say the 223 is fine for that. The 22 250, like I said, if you live in the plain states or in the desert, a long range varminter like this may be just a ticket for you if you specifically need that. It's got a lot of advantage over a lot of the other long range varminters. There's older ones like the 220 Swift, which was a real barrel burner. It was known for under 1,000 rounds. It cooked your barrel real quick. And then there's a lot of newer cartridges came out in the past, 10, 20 years that, of course, the companies, market as being the greatest thing ever. But I can tell you that most of them 10, 20 years from now, they're just not going to be around anymore. You're going to have a difficult time finding ammo for it. And if you go to sell that rifle, you're not going to get as much because somebody's going to look at it and be like, why would I want to buy a rifle chambered for something that I have a hard time getting ammo for? So buyer beware on any new awesome cartridges that come out. And then 243 and higher if you're looking for a deer capable kind of cartridge. So hope that helps you guys. You got any more questions on it, let me know.